Members, good afternoon. We formed a quorum and it's also the appointed time. Welcome to the meeting of the panel on Home Affairs, Culture and Sports. The first item on the agenda is information papers issued since the last meeting. We have got two. One is a letter dated the 4th of May from Ms. Joephy CHAN, and other one is the Electoral Affairs Commission report on the 2023 rural ordinary election. Members, please note the two papers. Ms. Joephy CHAN, do you want to add anything to your letter? Thank you, Chair, for accepting the paper. I hope we can have a discussion of the subject as soon as possible because important issues, including threat to national security, are involved. I hope we can have a chance to discuss the paper as soon as possible. And members, our chairman should urge the relevant departments to respond because judging from responses reported by the media, the departments have been disappointing. So we look forward to a more complete response from the departments. Thank you. Ms. Joephy CHAN has got a paper on the collection of our public libraries. We've already referred the paper to the CSTB. Hopefully they can respond very quickly. Items for discussion for the next meeting scheduled for the 12th of June, a Monday at 4:30 p.m. There are three suggestions from the administrations. A, promotion of youth internship and exchange outside Hong Kong. And second, sports policy and promoting development of sports in Hong Kong, as well as the new intelligence, sports and recreation services booking and information system of LCSD. Members, do you have any comments on the three items? If not, that will be our discussion items for the next meeting. All right. Item 3. One of the three discussion items we have today. Please invite the Youth and Home and Youth Affairs Bureau to come in. The item is Capital Works Project, Joint User Complex at Texaco Road, Tsuen, paper number 365/2023, a paper from the administration. Members, may I remind you that since this is a capital works project, members are required to declare the nature of interest if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest under ROP 83A. Please press the request to speak button. Under Secretary, when you are ready, can you please introduce the paper to us? Mr. Clarence Leung, Under Secretary. Thank you. Chair and members of the panel, I would like to brief members on the proposed construction of a joint user complex at Texaco Road, Hong Kong. In order to meet the keen demand for community facilities in Tsuen, the government proposes to construct at an GIC site in Tsuen a three-story joint user complex at Texaco Road for the provision of a standard community halls and two social welfare facilities. Now there are three community halls or centers operated by the LCSD, but then the population in Tsuen has been growing. In order to meet the rising demand for meeting venues and activity places, we propose to build a standard community hall at the JUC proposed here, and also to meet the demand for childcare places and elderly day places. We propose to set up an aided standalone childcare center and a neighborhood elderly center sub-base at the same JUC. The estimated project cost is about $241 million. In money of the day prices. After consultation of this panel, we are going to apply for funding from the Finance Committee as soon as possible. If funding approval is granted, we plan to start construction very soon for completion in around 2.5 years. Thank you. All right. we are going to discuss the paper introduced to us by Mr. Clarence Leung. We can have 5 minutes each. Ms. Nixie Lam, you go first. Thank you, Chair. I welcome the proposal because this used to be the district I serve when I was a district councillor. We didn't used to have so many private buildings, but now there are many private residential developments there. And we have a severe shortage of community halls there. Now, judging from past data, in between 2017 and 19, the utilization of community halls were up to 80%. If we take into account the time slots for repair, maintenance, and cleaning, actually, they are already up to capacity, and many organizations have complained to me that they couldn't find space for the events. At Shan White Cock, we have a community hall, and I think we have an urgent need for community halls in Tsuen. I've tried to engage the community, and there are 2 suggestions. First, the care teams in Tsuen South, they do not have a permanent office because the area are mainly private residential developments. There aren't any PRH estates run by the Housing Authority. So the care team would like to know whether space can be provided for them for liaison. And nearby, there are many new private residential developments. Families have demand for facilities such as libraries. However, the nearest public library is at least 20 minutes away, so on foot. So if possible, can you have a mini-size public library or at least a study room here for use by the residents? Under Secretary. Thank you, Ms. Nixie Lam, for your support for the proposal. We understand that residents in Tsuen have a keen demand for more community facilities. We want to complete the JUC as soon as possible to provide different types of community facilities here. As set out in the paper, we plan to provide a standard community hall, a standalone aided childcare center, and an NEC neighborhood elderly center subbase here. We've already maximized the plot ratio and building height allowed under the current OZP. If more facilities are to be included, then the planned services here may be adversely affected. However, we do understand Ms. Lam's concern for providing more community facilities here. So joint office for the care team, we can think about it. And apart from this JUC, we know that Tsuen is one of the pilot districts for setting up care teams. And Mr. Ao here is present today. I understand that Mr. Ao works with the care teams, and he will find out from care teams whether any assistance is needed by the care teams, including the provision of space. When need be, we can see what we can do to help. Ms. Lam referred to the need for library services. We will relay this request to the LCSD, and we will invite LCSD to consider whether there is room for a self-service library point to be set up here. We can discuss with the LCSD. Thank you. Ms. Joephy CHAN. Thank you, Chair. I speak to support the paper as well. I've also got suggestions. There are over 300,000 people living in Tsuen. We are short of community facilities. Well, a standard community hall is in response to the needs of the community, given that we've only got one community center and 2 CHS here. Now, there will also be an aided standalone CCC providing 100 places and also an NEC subbase. All these are welcomed. I've tried to understand from the district officer the Home Affairs Department has taken on board some of our suggestions. While you want to do good for the community, you have to ensure that you will not create grievances on the part of the community. I know the government has responded quite expeditiously. When it comes to the location of the JUC, it is quite close to a nearby residential development, the Aurora. The construction stage will cause nuisance to residents of the residential development. So make sure that you have proper noise insulation measures, and you must minimize the possible negative impacts on the neighborhood when you are building the JUC in order to allay the concerns of residents. As mentioned by the member speaking before me, we are so short of other community facilities. We've only got 2 public libraries in Tsuen. We want more library services to be provided. Please see whether you can include library services in this JUC to benefit residents nearby. That will make your project more welcome. And I suggest that you should include noise barriers just outside Ocean Pride and also Nina Center. Hopefully, you can ensure that these measures are properly implemented. Thank you. I heard Ms. Chan's suggestions for measures during construction. I'll defer to the ASD. Thank you.
On nuisances caused during the construction works, I believe that the major issue will be on noise, especially during piling works. For this project, piling works is expected to take place over 9 months. After taking consideration the surrounding environment, we will adopt quieter work procedures, including adopting certain types of piles instead of doing percussive piling. And as mentioned before, during the construction period, we'll set up noise barrier to mitigate the noise nuisance caused during the construction. Thank you. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chair. I support this project. In recent years, for projects to be completed within 2.5 years, that is certainly worth commending. I have a minor question. Currently, that site is being leased out on a short-term tenancy agreement as a community garden. I wonder if the community garden is a popular site for Tsuen residents. If it is a popular community garden, after the completion of this JUC, will there be any replacement? Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your support. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Lam has raised a good question. Currently, the site is being operated as a community garden for the elderly. People can grow plants there. After we have identified this piece of site for the construction of a community hall and social facilities, the district officer has met with the relevant organization. And we have identified 7 other sites that are suitable for reprovisioning of the community garden. The Produce Green Foundation is the organization responsible of the community garden. At the Tsuen Park nearby, community gardens are also available, which are managed by the LCSD. If they are interested, they can participate in the community garden there. Thank you. Next, Mr. Ben Chen. Thank you, Chair. This project has been in discussion for many years. During the development of the nearby area, we have been requesting such a community hall. This project can also solve the needs of childcare centers in the area. There are many young families who wish to see more childcare services provided in Tsuen. And with occasional childcare services, families can find suitable childcare services for them. I've heard some comments regarding the community garden. I understand that the district officer has offered other alternatives. I hope that they will be able to identify suitable site to carry on with the community garden. Since the site is quite close to the Aurora, I hope that during the construction period, the Architectural Services Department can pay more attention to nuisances such as noise, dust, etc. I hope you can adopt suitable mitigation measures. Just then you talk about noise barrier. I wonder what kinds of mitigation measures are in place. Can you tell us more? Under Secretary, Chair, perhaps I'll invite colleagues from the ASD to elaborate. Chair, at the construction site, we'll set up fences around the border, and noise barriers will also be set up. You may have seen them at construction sites. They are gray with a canvas material. How long will the piling period be? It is estimated to be around 9 months, depending on the weather. I hope that you can adopt appropriate mitigation measures to avoid nuisances to people living nearby. Thank you. Next, Dr. Chan. Thank you, Chair. I support this project. I have a question which may not be relevant to the Bureau. As we all know, Tsuen started development some 60 years ago, and many people live there. Just then, another member asked whether or not we can incorporate a care team office at the JUC and a library as well. I've noticed that no parking spaces are available in the JUC. The planning department has approved the plot ratio. I'm not sure what are the relevant guidelines, but I wonder if it is possible to raise the plot ratio. Currently, this building is only 3-story high. We have a keen demand on many social welfare facilities. Can you utilize this piece of land better? I hope that you can liaise with other government departments and consider this option. Under Secretary. Thank you, Dr. So, for your question. There are two aspects to this. First, on the plot ratio. The development plan has been approved by the Town Planning Board, and they have taken into consideration the impact that the project may have on the residents nearby. There are no ancillary parking spaces attached to a standard community hall. However, during the conception of this project, we did consider incorporating underground car parks to the site. However, the site is relatively small and there are limitations. And under the site, there are some drainage and water supply facilities. That's why it is more difficult to achieve for this project. We have considered this option, but in the end, we find that not feasible. This joint user complex is located in the middle of the Tsuen West region, so many residents nearby will be able to utilize this complex. In the project, there are 7 loading bays for coaches. Users of this complex will be able to access this building using public transport. Nearby, there are many shopping malls and housing estates which provide hourly parking spaces. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chan Yong. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Undersecretary and the District Officer. We, the DAB, support this project. Well, currently, the JUC is only 3-story high, but if it is extended to 6 stories, I believe that it will be even more popular. And it will be able to benefit more members of the public. I wonder if you have received any possibility of building extra stories in the future. Even though the pandemic is now over, the Electoral building is being boarded up for the expansion projects. If people living nearby will be able to expect good things coming from this project, they'll be able to tolerate them better. I think this is what you need to pay attention to let them know that to tolerate the construction periods in the future, good things will be coming. Will you be able to beautify the exterior of the construction sites so that when people are passing by, they will be able to feel better about the construction site? There were publicity efforts on the Tsuen pedestrian walkways, elevated walkways system, the footbridge system. Can we do something similar to that? And for the artist impression attached to the paper, yes, it looks quite nice. But is it possible for you to provide us with more details of what are contained in the building? This can help manage the public's expectation. If we can provide more details to the public, then they'll be able to get a better understanding of what to expect in this future JUC. And I hope that the government can step up their effort to oversee the work schedule and expenditure of the project. For the electrical expansion work, I don't think that we'll be able to complete the expansion during this term of the electrical. I hope that you can keep an eye on the progress of the works and make sure that it will not go over budget or beyond schedule. Thank you. And the Secretary, on your first two questions, that is under control. As for the other questions regarding work schedule and budget, I'll defer to my colleagues. First, thank you for your support. I've heard your views, especially regarding how to minimize impacts on residents living nearby. I'll certainly relate your message to colleagues from the ASD and contractors. And I've also heard your views about the expectation management of the drawings provided in the paper. I'll relate that message to the relevant colleagues as well. On the site budget, I'll defer to my colleagues from the ASD.
With regard to cost overrun, we have a series of measures to monitor the work's progress. Now, when we prepare the tender documents, we will make it very clear items to be provided and also the deliverables under the project. This can very effectively ensure that the contractor will not depart too much from our expectations. We'll expect financial and progress reports from the contractor on a regular basis so that we can oversee the whole progress very effectively. Thank you, Ms. Rebecca Chan. Thank you, Chair. It is good that you're going to provide a 100-place CCC in the JUC, but can we be given more information? Only a floor plan is attached to the paper. My concern is the space per capita in the CCC because I've got this information. On average, our CCCs are too small. On average, the space per capita is 2.8 square meters, whereas in Singapore, it is 5 square meters. It's almost double of what we have. If we provide so many places in this CCC, what is the size of this CCC? What is the space per capita? You know, if space is too limited, accidents are likely to happen. We want to provide a secure environment for our students, and if we don't have enough room, then we cannot provide physical training for our kids. And from the perspective view, I can see tall buildings behind your JUC. I'd like to know whether you've already maximized the plot ratio. Is there any possibility of building a taller complex? 3 stories is a bit limited. After all, the cost is not too much. Can we have something like a youth center here? We promote a single-site multiple use approach. Is it that there are restrictions, there are height restrictions here? Thank you, Ms. Chan, for your question. I will take the second question, and the SWD will take the question about CCC. In 2016, the Town Planning Board consulted the local community in working out the plot ratio, and the height restriction has been relaxed from 1 story to 3 stories. The Town Planning Board has specified the building height here, and we have already maximized it. SWD will address the question about the CCC. Usually in a CCC with 100 places, the net GFA is about 530 square meters, exclusive of accesses and toilets 530 square meters. Oh, that is quite sizable. Does that mean that you have the possibility of increasing the capacity of the CCC? Because when we have more childcare services, we can also unleash our women workforce. Does that mean that given the size of the sites, we can provide more than 100 places? Usually, the GFA is related to the number of places provided. If we want to provide more than 100, then the site will have to be bigger. We're still identifying suitable sites in the region to provide CCCs. For instance, there was a Cockshow Road project, and there we are also providing a 100-place CCC. So you're saying that for 100 places, you must have at least 530 square meters, and you have already maximized the site, right? Yes. We also need a nursing room and also activity rooms and also places for the kids to take naps, etc. If we provide more places here, that was not desirable for the children. So that means that you don't have extra room for more places, right? Yes. A simple follow-up. I understand the point about the plot ratio. In future, I hope you can make breakthroughs in the future. Because I have seen in recent years that most community halls are in buildings of 2 to 3 stories. We all know this site is quite a prime location, and if you only allow 3 stories here, that is a pity. Now, I am a board member of URC. They have got a 12-story JUC, 6 floors allocated to the health department, and 6 to the LCSD, and also another 6 stories for other department. Now, we have a keen demand for community facilities. In future, if we have a site available, please try to maximize it. Chairman, point noted and appreciated. I will relay your view to the relevant departments, but I believe every site has got its own planning intention. We have to respect the decision of the Town Planning Authority. Appreciated, but please take note of this in the future. All right, we have had a detailed discussion of the paper. I'd like to ask members whether we support the submission of this paper to PWSC. All right, I can see that all members are in agreement. Thank you very much, Under Secretary, for coming to this part of the meeting. Next, again, a subject close to the heart of many of us, and that is the 15th National Games and the preparation work. Under Secretary and his team, please join us at this moment. We have the Under Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism, Mr. Raislin Lau, present. If you wish to ask questions, please press the Request to Speak button.
Right,
if you're ready, please walk us through the paper. Thank you, Chair. The State Council in August 2020 announced that the 15th National Games in 2025 will be co-hosted by the Guangdong Province, the Hong Kong SAR government, and the Macau SAR government. This is the first time Hong Kong has been involved in the co-hosting of national games. Now, according to the latest announcement, there will be 34 sports events, and for details such as the actual time and also details that will be announced in due course. The three governments will also host the national
運動會，即係特奧會。
Games for Persons with Disabilities (NDG), as well as the NSOG. Then the NDG and NSOG will include sports for the physically disabled, intellectually disabled, blind, and deaf. Details will also be confirmed by the country later. The Guangdong Sports Bureau has agreed that 8 sports competition events and 4 to 5 mass participation events will take place in Hong Kong, pending approval from the GASC. It's expected that 3,200 athletes and officials taking part in sports competitions and mass participation events to be staged in Hong Kong will visit us. And during the together with the 12th NGD and 9th NSGOG, and we will also have to hold test events for the GD, and most of the events will be held at Kai Tak Sports Park and some other competition grade areas. The leading group of preparatory office of the 15th NG was set up in March. The group leader is the JSC's vice director, and there are 9 deputy leaders comprising 5 officials from GSA and also the president of Sports Bureau of Macau and commissioner for sports of Hong Kong SAR. And then the leading group would be reorganized into the organizing committee. The Guangdong side and also Macau have set up their own organizing committee. And then in Hong Kong, we have also set up the Hong Kong SAR organizing committee of the 15th National Games, with the C as the patron, the CS4A as the chairman, and Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism as the Secretary General to provide policy steer and oversee the preparation for events to be staged in Hong Kong. And in the fourth quarter of 2023, we're going to set up a steering committee chaired by the Permanent Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism, with support from 5 coordinating committees: 1 competitions, 2 immigration, security and accreditation, 3 media, publicity and community relations, 4 medical services, and 5 transport and traffic arrangements. In April, the Preparatory Office started its operation to provide support, and then the office will be subsumed under the National Games Coordination Office to be set up under CSTB, the NGCO, to fully implement the policies and also the various preparation work of the 3 games. We expect that there will be a lot of coordination work to be done. So we believe that the coordination officer should be headed by 3 directorate grade officers to enhance liaison and collaboration with Guangdong and also Macau. Now, the organizing committee will have to look at matters such as public health, transport, immigration, competition, etc. And we must boost the directorate establishment of the organizing committee. So we are proposing 3 time-limited supernumerary posts. We are proposing to create 1 supernumerary administrative officer, staff grade A at D6 civil service post or non-civil service position equivalent to D6, 1 supernumerary AO staff grade B D3 CS post or NCS position equivalent to D3, and also 1 supernumerary assistant director of municipal services at D2. They will have to carry out the work steered by the Organizing Committee of Hong Kong and also the Coordination Office of Hong Kong. They will have to overall oversee the various policies and implement the policies and run the competitions. They have to represent the Hong Kong South government in attending meetings and visits and to discuss with the two other governments responsible for co-hosting the games. We suggest that we have a staff grade BD3 post as the deputy head of the NGCO to support the head of the NGCO to assist him in overseeing the organization and to carry out all the work related to the three games. We also propose to create an assistant head of the National Games Coordination Office, packed at D2, to provide input on the overall implementation of the policies. We have considered whether we can ask existing staff to cover the work to be taken up by these three officers. But then because of the large volume of work and also the tight time schedule, we believe that this is not feasible. We suggest that a special team be set up to be headed by three officers so that we can hold the three games properly. Now for the positions of head, the deputy head and assistant head of NGCO, the additional total notional annual salary cost will be $8.415 million, and the total full annual average staff cost, including salaries and staff on costs, is about $11 million. We've already included that provision in the current budget. We urge members to note the paper and also comment on our staffing proposal. Thank you.
We have 10 members who have pressed the request to speak button. Since we have 3 items today, time is limited, so I'll allow 4 minutes for each member. Dr. Johnny Ng, Mr. Kenneth Fok, Mr. Rob Chan, Ms. Joephy CHAN, Dr. So Chan Wing, Mr. Luk Chung Hong, Ms. Rebecca Chan, Mr. Vincent Chan, that is myself, Mr. Andrew Lam, and Mr. Kenneth Lau. First, Dr. Johnny Ng. For the co-hosting of the national games, that is unprecedented. I'm sure that will create a wave of sports fever in Hong Kong because of the number of the participants comparable to that of the East Asian Game in 2019. So the government said that you will draw experience from the East Asian Games. During the recruitment of the supernumerary posts, will you approach members who have participated in the EAG to see if they will be able to contribute their experience to the national games? At the time, there were quite a bit of chaos in the East Asian Games. There were not enough tickets and problems with broadcasting of events and confusion caused in the match schedule because of the lack of venues. The archery event will have to be cancelled. I hope that these types of issues will not appear again in the national game. For the 8 competitions to be organized in Hong Kong and the 4 mass participation events, I hope that you can be well prepared and step up your publicity efforts. Thank you. Undersecretary. For making this staffing proposal, we have drawn reference from our experience in the East Asian Games. But I would like to stress that the experience is quite different because at the time, Hong Kong was the sole organizer and we had a relatively higher degree of freedom. However, this time we are cooperating with Guangdong and Macau. So we have to liaise with these 2 places to set standards. So there needs to be a lot of communication. On the possibility of inviting previous members who participated in the EAG to help organize the national games, well, we are open to that possibility. We welcome all talents to participate in the organization of these national games. We admit that there were areas where we could have improved in the East Asian Games. That is why, under the steering committee, we have a coordinating committee focused on publicity and liaison with the other regions. We hope that we'll be able to liaise with the other two regions and set standards. And we can draw reference from each other's experience. Thank you. Next, Mr. Kenneth Fok. Thank you, Chair. It is very exciting news for Hong Kong to host the 15th National Games. I look forward to it very much. I support the three proposed creation of the supernumerary posts. Actually, I wonder if you need to create more posts, because I understand that for these collaboration between Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau, the workload is certain to be very heavy. In enclosure 1, I have a question regarding the organization chart. Since the Commissioner for Sports is here, well, the Commissioner is responsible for sports development. If we look at the organization chart, there is a secretary, permanent secretary, and then D6, D3, and D2. Where does the Commissioner for Sports fit in? How will he collaborate with all these people responsible? The reason I ask this question is that, as mentioned in enclosure 2, the job duties of the head of the coordination office is to liaise and act as a focal point of contact with mainland authorities. So after the national games, perhaps we can collaborate with Guangdong and Macau to organize some other major sports events. After we have established these committees for the organization of the national games, I hope that these posts can be retained and they will not be cancelled in the future, because sports development is a sustained effort. As mentioned in the paper, test events will need to be conducted 9 to 12 months before the national games. For the Kai Tak Sports Park, it will be completed at the end of 2024. Then we may not have enough time to conduct our test events there. Lastly, on broadcast, sponsor, ticketing issues, etc. of the East Asian Games. But since we are collaborating with the mainland authorities, will the games be broadcast through CCTV? And I know that there are many businesses willing to sponsor the national games. And how can these be shared with our mainland counterparts? I hope that liaison can start as soon as possible, because from my experience, these things or negotiations take time. Thank you, Mr. Fok, for your question and your views. We will certainly draw reference from what you said. The Commissioner for Sports are part of the organizing committee of the 15th National Game. He has already established close working relations with their mainland counterparts. However, the liaison and collaboration efforts or their workloads will be very heavy. It is very difficult for the Commissioner to shoulder all these responsibilities. That is why we propose the creation of these three supernumerary posts. The Commissioner for Sports will provide guidance to members of the organizing committee and will play a significant role in liaison with mainland and Macau authorities. In the past, the CCTV is responsible for the coordination of the events broadcast, but we will certainly play a role in that as well. As for the Kai Tak Sports Park, it is expected to be completed by the end of next year. We have reserved time for test events, and we are confident that we'll be able to conduct test events there. Thank you. Next, Mr. Rock Chan. Thank you, Chair. As we all know, we are 2 years away from the National Games. 2 years pass very quickly. I'm concerned about the venue issues just mentioned, and I have other concerns as well, such as the training of athletes, recruitment of volunteers, and manpower of civil servants, etc. We understand that there are 3 proposed supernumerary directorate posts for the organizing committee. Can you tell us more about your preparatory work? Second, there are 3,200 athletes and staff members coming to Hong Kong to participate in the Games. Will there be dedicated accommodation for the athletes? In the paper, it is stated that other than these 3 directorate posts, we have 40 colleagues assisting these directorate posts, including civil servants and non-civil servant contract staff. We will further consider the need of increasing manpower. And for volunteer recruitment, we will set up the steering committee chaired by the Permanent Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism. And under the steering committee, there are 5 coordinating committees to handle these issues. We have to stress that because the National Games are co-hosted with Guangdong and Macau, we need to have consistent arrangements across the 3 regions, and we need to set standards across the 3 regions as well. Thank you. Next, Ms. Joephy CHAN. Thank you, Chan. It is an honor for Hong Kong to be able to co-host the National Games. One of the themes of the National Games is simple. However, your proposal is not very simple. You are proposing 3 supernumerary posts at the directorate level at an expenditure of about $8 million. We have always held major events in Hong Kong, and we are in liaison with our mainland counterparts. So I wonder why the current manpower will not be able to absorb these responsibilities. And I would like to know if the Kai Tak Sports Park will be the venue for all these events. The sports park is expected to be completed by 2024. If the park will not be able to be completed on time, does the administration have any contingency plans in place? Does the administration has any publicity plans in the works? I understand that in the mainland, the events are broadcast through CCTV. I hope that the broadcasting arrangements can be settled as soon as possible in Hong Kong. If we are able to confirm or finalize the broadcasting arrangements in Hong Kong as soon as possible, this will allow the popularization of the events. Thank you, Ms. Chan, for your question. We have already followed a simple principle in the establishment. However, Hong Kong is going to host 8 events. the number of participants or athletes is very high. We need to discuss with our counterparts issues relating to the events. And there are different arrangements in place in these three regions, such as immigration arrangements. So we expect that the workload will be very heavy. The liaison between different levels and different regions will be intense. That is why we believe that the existing directorate officers will not be able to absorb these job duties. That is why we are proposing the 3 supernumerary directorate posts. As for any contingency plan regarding the Kai Tak Sports Park, I'll defer to the Commissioner for Sports. We are working with the relevant parties responsible for the construction of the Kai Tak Sports Park, and we are confident that it will be completed by 2024. In Hong Kong, we have other backup stadiums in place as well. From our past experience, the broadcast arrangements are coordinated by the CCTV. Only a very small amount of broadcasting fees are required. If I recall correctly, the amount was less than 100,000 renminbi. If broadcasting rights are granted to local broadcasters, then members of the public will be able to enjoy the events. Thank you. Next, Dr. So Chun-Wing.
I have no negative comments about the proposal because this is the first time we have such a mega event, and it involves the image of the country as well as Hong Kong, and it can also help Hong Kong accumulate experience in running such a big event. My concern is whether you have enough manpower, because there are a lot of things that require attending to. Compared with the East Asia Games, I think the government is devoting much more attention, because in 2009, the East Asia Games were mainly organized by the NGOs in the sports sector. Just 2 reminders for you. First, whether you have enough manpower. Since the government is responsible for co-hosting the event, you have to ensure that you have enough manpower. And secondly, given the current manpower situation, I believe it is you really need to plan ahead if you want to have enough hands, in particular people with professional knowledge. And then we are also cooperating with Guangdong and Macau. Very often, we have our different ways of doing things. So you have to ensure that people manning these positions can communicate with their counterparts in Guangdong and Macau. So I hope you can do your best in recruitment. You may have to offer higher pay to ensure you have people of the right caliber to occupy the positions. Thank you. Yes, the country has honored us with the task to co-host the games with 2 other places. While we want to keep things simple, we want to ensure that all that needs to be done will be done. So we are proposing 3 additional directorate posts to be supported by 40 civil service or NCS posts. We believe that should be appropriate. We have taken reference from our experience of AG and also the celebration activities of the 25th anniversary of the handover. If we need further manpower, we'll come back in the first instance to the Council to ask for more. As mentioned by Mr. So, 3 places are co-hosting the games, so there are a lot of coordination. There is a lot of coordination work to be done, and ability to communicate and to coordinate things is certainly a requirement. I think you should also allow people who have failure experience in the past so that they can use their past experience to rectify some of the past mistakes. Mr. Lok Chung Hong, I am a staunch supporter of sports events, but forgive me if I sound harsh this time. The Undersecretary said that there must be extra manpower. My question is whether the Guangdong Sports Administration has boosted their senior government officials as well. Now, we always want to learn from the mainland. I'd like to know whether your Guangdong counterpart has boosted senior manpower for the games. Thank you, Mr. Lok, for your questions. First, the 3 places. No, I hope the Undersecretary will not beat around the bush. I want to ask whether they have ascertained from Guangdong whether they have created either temporary or time-limited posts at their senior level. I do understand the essence of Mr. Lok's question. The question is they have yet to set up their coordination office, not to mention their establishment. We have to take into account the differences in situation and system of the 3 places. The Undersecretary should be humbler. Don't always highlight the differences. After all, we are talking about hosting the same sports events. They have to work out the different rules of the games, and of course we should support the other 2 places, and it is an honor to have these tasks given to us by the central government. But then too many soups can spoil the broth. We need to be modest. And please don't give the community the impression that when we have a new event, we always have to create new positions, whether permanent or supernumerary. So we should all walk an extra mile. We understand that you're going to be busy. Perhaps part of the workload can be shared by other colleagues, or the regular work can be shared by their subordinates. Now you are asking for 3 extra posts. Must we have 3 extra posts? A head, a deputy head, and also an assistant head. Must you add more manpower to show the significance you attach to a particular event? We have to bear in mind what Presidency said. I'm all for co-hosting the games in Hong Kong. I don't want to sound difficult here, but every time when we have when we host an event, Yes, of course, this is a mega event, but must we have 3 extra directorate grade officers? Bear in mind that the most senior post is packed at D6. I urge the Undersecretary to think twice. If you want to boost manpower, must it be 3? Well, we have gone through a very rigorous assessment in submitting the manpower proposal. At this moment, I cannot really guess the manpower establishment of the Guangdong authorities. Mr. Look is just speculating whether our manpower arrangement here is reasonable. I cannot really comment on that. But then the mainland provinces have ample experience in hosting national games. The Guangdong province has hosted many terms of national games, and now we are co-hosting it, and I think they have to make adjustment. And at this moment, we don't have any idea about their manpower setup. Yes, I can try to find out from them their staffing proposal, and let's see what they have to share with us. But I have to stress here, based on our own assessment of workload involved, we have to make our own adjustment and planning. We have taken reference from experience in hosting the East Asia Games and also the 25th anniversary of the reunification celebration activities. And based on our experience, we believe we need this level of manpower support. We are not proposing 3 additional posts in an arbitrary manner. I think the accusations are absolutely unacceptable. No, not these are not really accusations. I made such suggestions out of goodwill. You don't have to view my comments so negatively, because one of the themes of the game is simple. Thank you. Ms. Rebecca Chan. The National Games 2025 will be co-hosted by Hong Kong, Guangdong, and Macau. This is an important event because Hong Kong, as well as our athletes, very much want to join the games with Hong Kong as the home base. So for the 3 additional directorate grade officers, they are going to lead 40 non-directorate grade officers to ensure that we can host a good game. And I want to commend the department or the bureau. In the closure too, we have got very detailed description of duties and responsibilities of the 3 officers. You know, we always criticize the government for being very economical in giving us details of the duties and responsibilities of these officers, but they have given us a very clear description, and for each officer there are 6 or 7 points under their job description. For the head of the National Games Coordination Officer, under points 5 to 6, I think we are expecting a rather all-rounded candidate. He has to formulate overall public relations strategy. He has to oversee engagement and communication with relevant stakeholders. I'd like to know whether we have a suitable candidate within the civil service so that we can have internal promotion, or else we may have to recruit from outside the civil service. Another point is about the venues. I note that there is project slippage for Kai Tak Sports Park, although we were told that the park could be completed by late 2024. And according to the paper, there can be other alternative venues or arenas. I'd like to ask whether we can expedite the works. Usually, we need 6 to 12 months ahead for test events. And what about the traffic infrastructure? We cannot have the Kai Tak Sports Park in the middle of a construction site, because there will be athletes coming to Hong Kong to play, and we need the necessary T&T infrastructure. So I'd like to learn more about this. Under Secretary, thank you. Indeed, the head of the National Games Coordination Office has to be someone of very high caliber, and therefore we have built in this flexibility. The post holder can be someone from within the civil service or from without, so that will give us flexibility to find the most suitable candidates to take up the post. As for the construction of the Kai Tak Sports Park, I will defer to the Commissioner. Thank you. The work progress is quite satisfactory. We have assessed the impact of COVID and also the impact of the rainy season. We're quite confident that the park can be completed by end 2024. We expect the NG to be held in September or October 2025, so there will be about 8 to 9 months for us to work on the park, and the test events will be held 6 to 12 months before the games. So there should be ample time for the events. And after the completion of the park, we will have a series of test events to ensure that the park can operate smoothly for the benefit of the NG. As for traffic arrangements, we will really rely on the MTR. It is just 5 or 8 minutes away from 2 MTR stations respectively. So we believe we will have good transport infrastructure to support the park. But some members are concerned whether 3 supernumerary posts will be sufficient, because we want to ensure that the NG can be held successfully. So if you need further manpower, do come back to the council to ask for more. Thank you.
做到呢一點。
Thank you for your kind reminders. Thank you. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lau. Of course, it is a good thing for Hong Kong to co-host the national games with Guangdong and Macau. The administration is here before us for the proposed creation of 3 directorate posts. When we look at the posts, the ranks and their job duties, perhaps the administration need to adjust your expectation when it comes to the candidates who are able to fulfill these duties and responsibilities. When I look at the duties listed, they are quite descriptive, and the scope is quite broad. Just as Ms. Rebecca Chan said, that the job duties at the moment are quite descriptive. Is it possible for you to describe the duties in more specific details so that it would be easier to garner our support to create these new posts? The national games are a nationwide event, so we need to do better than we did in the East Asian Games. I hope that you can provide us with more details so that members and the public can be made aware of specific details. This is merely a suggestion. My question is that other than drawing experience from the East Asian Games, we will draw reference from other major sports events as well. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Professor Lau, for your comments. East Asian Games was Hong Kong's first time in organizing international major sports events, so we have limited experience. Although we are drawing reference from the East Asian Games, we don't just transfer the whole experience to the national games. We have plans to adapt to the current situation as well. For the East Asian Games, the organization was led by the International Olympic Committee. But for the national games, it is organized on a government level. We have taken this into consideration as well. In the paper, we have provided with the projected manpower needs for the organizing committee. Various government departments will deploy their staff members to support the national games as well, such as the discipline services or medical services department, etc. We need to wait for the release of details of the national games before we can make a comprehensive plan. If needed, we will come to Electoral to propose other changes as well. Thank you. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lau. Thank you, Chair. In principle, I support the 3 supernumerary directorate posts for the organizing committee of the 15th National Games. The 15th NG will be held in 2025, and this is the first time that Hong Kong co-hosts the NG. I believe that it is a very good opportunity for Hong Kong to promote its image as a sports center. And the creation of these 3 directorate posts will be able to assist the government in taking forward long-term sports policy and liaising with our mainland counterparts. Well, I have some questions. Since we don't have the details of the events yet, the Kai Tak Sports Park will be the major arena for most sports competitions. Since it is still not yet completed, I wonder if Hong Kong has other arenas suitable for these events, and do we have enough accommodation for these 3,200 athletes and officials to come to Hong Kong? Thank you. Under Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Lau, for your question. We are very confident that the Kai Tak Sports Park will be able to complete on time. We will also have enough time for test events and for the national games itself. But of course, like any other major events, we need to have contingency plans in place so that when issues arise, we can have other options available. In our contingency plan, we will arrange for the other arenas to be available for use for the national games. I'll see if the Commissioner has anything to add. For events expected to take place in Hong Kong, we have plans in place already. We have also formulated backup plans. Like what the Undersecretary said, we have done some modification or will do modification to these arenas so that when it comes to it, they can be used as the National Games arena. Thank you. So now it's my turn. I support the creation of these 3 supernumerary directorate posts. My view is a bit different with some of our members. Of course, we need to set standards as to when we can create new posts. Here we are talking about the national games. It is a very large-scale event. We need to be able to perform well in the organization of these games. And the events will be held at the new Kai-Tak Sports Park. Since the park is new, there are things that we may not have expected, and that's why we need the extra manpower to tackle these issues. Let's take the example of the supernumerary post of the Kai-Tak Sports Park. The post holder is responsible for many different job duties. So actually, I have concerns about the heavy workloads for these officers. So, Undersecretary, if you find that the manpower is insufficient, please come to us for further discussion. My first question is this. Of course, I support the organization of the National Games in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, there will be 8 events and 5 mass participation events. We would like to know, do you have any ideas what kind of events they are, so that members of the public can have something to look forward to? Of course, I understand that you need to wait for details to be released, but do you have any ideas that you can share with us? And the 4 to 5 mass participation events are very interesting because members of the public will be able to participate. If you have details on that, perhaps you can announce them soon. This can encourage enthusiasm of sports among the public. As for accommodation for athletes, I believe that there is a suitable site next to the Kai-Tak Sports Park to be established as an athlete village. Of course, it may not be able to accommodate all athletes, but that can certainly be a choice. Third, I understand that it is not easy for athletes to win medals in major international sports events, but in the coming Asian Games, our athletes may be able to perform well and win medals. I wonder if you have any measures in place to encourage athletes to perform better for Hong Kong, such as any monetary incentive. Thank you, Chair, for explaining our consideration in terms of manpower. The workload is indeed very heavy, and I thank you for your support. For the Games, we have raised suggestions to General Administration of Sport of China 8 events, including beach volleyball, yachting, golf, etc. These are already popular sports in Hong Kong. We believe that if these events are hosted in Hong Kong, we'll be able to create a wave of enthusiasm for sports in Hong Kong. As for the mass participation events, there are some very popular events such as badminton, 5-a-side football, bridge, etc. But it is still up to the GASC to decide. As for accommodation, we need to liaise with the Guangdong and Macau administrations. We need to set a consistent standard. But at the very least, we will, of course, provide suitable accommodation for them so that they can perform better in the Games. And we are providing support and encouragement for our athletes because we want them to be able to win medals for Hong Kong. Thank you. I hope that you can provide more opportunities for young elite athletes because they need a stage to shine on. Thank you. Do you have other questions regarding this item? Do all members agree to submit the proposal to the Establishment Subcommittee for further scrutiny? If all members are in favor, then this concludes this agenda item. Thank you. Next agenda item. Capital Works Project Quarry Park in Anderson Road Quarry. The administration has submitted papers. I'll invite the administration to join us. Under Secretary, when you're ready. Thank you, Chair. Members, thank you for inviting us together with the LCSD and the ASD here to tell you more about the construction plans for the Quarry Park in Anderson Road Quarry. Details have been set out in the paper, including the scale, content, and the expenditure. The Anderson Road Quarry involves 11 sites of public housing development expected to be completed between 2023 to 26. It is expected that 10,730 residential flats will be provided for some 30,000 population in order to cater for the housing estates nearby, such as On Thai Estate and On Tat Estate. We would like to provide leisure facilities, including a central lawn and landscape garden, jogging, an amphitheater, a viewing platform, etc., and active facilities such as walking, jogging track, adventurous playground, orienteering course, multi-purpose outdoor courts, handball pitches, etc. Because of the park's previous nature as a quarry, we want to showcase the different phases of the quarry park. The estimated project cost is $835 million, which is expected to complete in about 3 years. We have consulted with the relevant stakeholders to make sure that the needs of the public are met, and we will keep an eye on the expenditure and ensure the cost effectiveness of the project. Here, I would like to seek your support for the project. We plan to seek funding approval from the Finance Department so that this can be completed as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Rebecca Chair. Oh, I go first. All right. Under Secretary, I support the Quarry Park in Anderson Road Quarry because there are so many new housing sites in Anderson Road, and we need a park to serve the new population. In particular, you're going to have city orienteering course. I have taken part in orientation events. I think it is both physically and mind stimulating. I think young people like that. Can you tell us the direction for the orienteering course? Are you going to cooperate with some organizations? Some of them are quite successful in providing these events, and I understand that you're going to respect the historical background of the quarry. In new venues, private ones in particular, their basketball courts are very attractive. And if we take aerial pictures with a drone, now they look so artistic. I hope you can add some artistic features to the park so that they can be welcomed by young people too. Thank you. I will defer to the LCSD on the question about the orienteering course, and also ASD will comment on the design. Well, orienteering activities are family activities. We can make markings on trees, so parents and children can try to find out all the trees in the orienteering course. We have such a course in the park. There will be about 30 checkpoints. We are going to design different courses by using a map that can be downloaded from our site, or the association can also organize competitions. I believe young people would welcome such activities. Thank you. Any improvement to the design of the park, please? We have zones A and B in the park. The chair asked about the design of the basketball and football pitches. In fact, they are in area B. Please refer to page 5 of enclosure 2 to the paper. We will have a changing room complex in the football or basketball pitches where there will be exhibits to showcase the rich historical background of the quarry. Is it the first time we have this kind of park? Well, in other parks we have tree orienteering courses, but this is the first with such a large scale. Ms. Rebecca Chan, thank you. You call it a quarry park. Well, Mr. Zhang is concerned about activities for young people. I'm more concerned about activities for kids. Of course, you will have basketball and football courts and also fitness facilities. You have to bear in mind that this is near new public housing estates where there will be young families, and we do not have other large parks nearby, if you know the place well. Young people can ride a bus to go to other parks, but for children, we always criticize our playground. We don't even have a long slide. You propose an adventurous playground here. I don't know how adventurous it's going to be. Please elaborate afterwards. And I'm also concerned about pets. You have a pet garden. I have taken my pets to many pet gardens in Hong Kong, and I think the situation is rather pathetic. I know Kowloon Chai Park well. The pet garden there is smaller than half badminton court. Here is next to the EVA. I can't tell how big that pet garden is going to be. Pets are not allowed usually within the perimeters of public housing estates. I'd like to know the size of the pet garden here. Judging from the layout plan, it's going to be a very, very small one. And the third question, you should learn from new parks nearby. Why this is in Sai Kung district. Now you may take a look at the Jordan Valley Park nearby. Usually there are long vehicle queues on holidays. While you have a car park here, we don't know the number of parking spaces. Can that be provided, please? I will defer to the LCSD to take the second question and supplement on the third point. Of course, we have a pet garden here. In fact, the whole park is pet friendly. That is, members of the public can enjoy the facilities together with their pets. But it's just that areas outside the pet garden, the dogs might have to be unmuffled. In addition to ancillary car parking spaces here, we have 200 car parking spaces nearby in a public car park. We have checked with the transport department to ensure that the need for parking spaces is satisfied here. LCSD, the adventurous garden or playground will be about 1,800 square meters big. Some criticize our playgrounds for being too simple. Now this one is going to be an exciting and challenging one. Our proposal, our preliminary ideas are: we will have taller slides, we will have ropes and also a rope tunnel, and also a play space that simulate the quarry. So these facilities will be found in the playground. So we believe it's going to be an interesting one. The pet garden will be divided into two parts. One is for big dogs with an area of 398 square meters, and also another one for small-sized dogs with an area of 452 square meters. There will be play equipment for pets too, so that pet owners can let their dogs run wild. And then for the other parts of the park, the dogs can be there on leash. I really have to praise you for creating a pet-friendly park here, because many parks run by LCSD will have this sign at the entrance: children are not allowed to cycle, and then dogs are not allowed. In fact, it's not just dogs. People like to walk their cats and also rabbits, and even parrots are found in parks with their owners. I hope this will not be the only pet-friendly park, because people not living in this district may want a similar one for themselves. So it's good that dogs can run around in a pet garden, and it's also good to have a pet-friendly park. I hope we can have similar parks in other districts. And then we have discussed a number of times in the council, children playground. I hope you can put in more thoughts in designing the park. I hope this adventurous park will be a very popular one, and then we can have similar ones elsewhere. Agree. Well, the lawn at WKCD is very popular among pet owners. There should be more space for pets. That ends our discussion here. Members, is there any objection for submission of this paper to PWSC? All right, we all agree. Thank you. That ends the discussion of this item. AOB, if we don't have any, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.